Hello everyone, I'm Bilal Savaş from Tilya Company. We are here at Yedikule Fortis Museum in front of Mario Rodriguez artwork. We will be talking about the artwork and the Mario Rodriguez himself. So let's begin with our questions. Hello Mario.
Hello Bilal.
How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Can you introduce yourself a bit?
All right. Mario Rodriguez, I'm an artist and an architect. I have a background in architecture. I worked there for 10, 12 years. And then I got fired. And I say, okay, this is a signal that I have to follow my passion. So then I started like 7 years ago, like professionally making it. Art always been with me since beginning, since my mother has like a workshop of clay and ceramics. So I grew up with art. But yeah, I studied architecture for some reasons, but always art has been like part of my life, you know. So yeah, 7 years ago, I have the guts to say, okay, I will go for it, you know, I will follow my real passion. And then I start having the passion for nature, for the landscape is like my main source of inspiration. I grew up in Medellin. It's a city in Colombia, and it's in a valley. It's like and so it's surrounded by like a mountain chains, really big mountain chains, very beautiful. And during the day, you can see how those big, massive mountains are like disappearing with the light, you know, like layers. So that kind of sublime, you know, the interaction with the clouds and the sun is what gets my attention. So all my work is like a tribute to that landscape that I see when I grew up. Yeah. And that combination between the matter, what we see, and the ether and the light. So I start doing figurative landscape as a way of, you know, I like this, I will recreate it as it is. And then I start to synthesize and to get to the essence of what I really like. And then I mix things about the architecture, like the way of having the idea of the space. For example, here it's not the same to make this work here or to make it in a small gallery or in my studio. It depends a lot of the context where it will be placed. It's not just throwing your artwork, it's interaction with the space, also with the history of the place where it will be, with the culture, with the resources we have. You know, if you don't have budget, okay, what can we do to make it possible? You know, art is always about, you know, living, you know, the moment, the present, and being in emotion with what moves us. So when I got the invitation from Zeynep and Feliz, I was really excited about, you know, the place. Initially was like, wow. So I saw the place. Okay, Istanbul already been here, so I already know a little bit about the context. So I'm working in a series called Portals, which takes the fissure, the crack, the mineral kingdom fracture. So in different scales, could be in a stone or could also be in the tectonic plates. So in this case, I took as a reference the line that divides the European part from the Asian part in Istanbul. So I say, okay, it's a really beautiful fracture. In the end, it doesn't work exactly as we imagine, but it's part of the artwork. You know, it's natural, the gravity. But yeah, but it still has the essence of what we have in our minds. You know, so which is like a, you know, like a line of life, which here it has like movement and then it goes straight. And also the idea of this is like it was a dungeon, so it's like a rope for escape, you know, in some way. The idea of the fissure is really beautiful. I connected with the Tao philosophy. They talk about a lot about the void and the idea of the void. So the fracture, the fissure, is always like it looks like a bad thing, you know. It has a fracture, it has a crack, it's bad. But in Western, well, in Eastern civilizations, okay, there's a crack, don't hide the crack.
So Mario, you talked about you have a background on interior design. You have worked on it for 12 years.
In architecture and
in architecture and interior design. So how did it affect the way you make art? The way you look at art?
Well, it affects a lot because for me, the space where mainly with the installations where they will be placed is so important, so definitely. So I took in consideration the scale. For example, this is round, so I put like a circle mirrored, the scale, the materials, the proportions. It helps me to understand the three-dimensionality, the synthesis, the reductive of the minimalism of the materials. Yeah, it affects a lot. In the beginning, I didn't make any sense. Why did I study architecture? Why did I spend so many years? And then I feel thankful for that because I get a lot of tools. And for example, these installations, first I made the model in 3D. I made renders, so that's the way sometimes I design. I get with an idea, and from them I show them, and they become real. So yeah, I'm really thankful for all those years that I've been into architecture and design.
So we can see that your work mainly focuses on architecture, nature and light. Can you talk about the relationship between those elements?
Well, nature is my source of inspiration. My work is also always a tribute to nature, so that's my main source. Space is where I place the work, so it's really important what I'm going to be, the artwork is going to be inserted, what is the history of the place, what are the proportions, the materials, the soul of the place. And light for me is like, it's everything, it's like the goal, we're always looking for the light. In conceptually talking about, something going the best of us, the light of us, the spirit of us. So yeah, it basically is that.
So can you talk about the things you use, the materials you use while making your art, and also challenges of using them and advantages of using them? I'm also interested in learning, because I'm working on the plastics. Do you use plastics in your works? How can you benefit from the use of plastic, and what are your main materials?
I have a teacher in the university that tells us something that is really important. He says there's no good or bad materials. There are bad ways to use a material and good ways to use a materials. So that sentence is always in my mind. So I don't have like this is my material. No, depends. Depends on what? Depends on the concept, depends on the budget, depends on the culture, in the place where the resources we have. So the first is the concept, and then comes the materials. I'm not attached to a material in particular. I use plastic, when we talk about it. I use ABS and polystyrene. I use it because it's like a very thermoformable material. So with a heat gun, I start to model it, and I found it really, really easy and really interesting and really, really durable. Also, really, really great material. Then I paint it, chrome it, and it gets a really, really nice finish. I love my respect for nature. I'm not with the plastic as a single-use plastics. I'm not against about that. But if they are going to last and they can be recycled and they can be used properly, plastic has a lot of pros. So yeah, it's not like this is bad, this is good. No, it depends on how we use it.
Exactly, yeah. So can you talk about a bit of the installation you made here?
Yes. Well, this installation is part of the series called Portals, which I take the fissure that opens a crack. So it's a pattern that we see in different things in nature, in the rivers, in the geological formations, in the thunders, in the veins. Everywhere they are that form, that line, So For this installation in particular, I took as a reference the crack that divides European from Asian part of Istanbul, the Bosphorus River, exactly. Yeah. That outline, I found it really beautiful, really sensual. So I took that reference, and also I took the concept of the rope as a trying to escape of the dungeon. And the mirror connects heaven to earth. You know, it's like a connection, like a pole connection of a tunnel. Also, it's coming from the earth and it's coming to the ground. It's like, you know, it's what connects us. You know, we come from light, we come from energy, and so then we're going back there. So it's more or less the concept of the installation called Portals.
Yeah, Mario, thanks a lot for the talk.
Thank you so much, Bilal, for the interview. And thank you for the support, for having us here. Thank you, Zeynep, for the patience, for all the organization. Feliz, so he's gone. My friend Aro Vecina, it was a really, really great help here. I made my first kind of installation in Malta with him, so a really good friend, a really talented artist also. So, and thanks all for having me. I feel really welcome here, so thanks for the experience.
Thank you, sir.